right, folks, welcome to Board Gaming News. Well, speaking of the Olympics and sports, you can see on your first slide here the culmination of a great victory happening a few weeks ago, where the great Stephen Buonocore went up against the underdog Tom Vasel and lost in a contest, and you can see the results on your screen.
Can they?
Oh yeah, we forgot to put that in your slideshow, but it's there on the screen. Sorry. Maybe you shouldn't be sending donuts to people.
Oh, that's great. I haven't posted the video yet. I got to put it on my channel too. That was fun reaction that I had to like losing because Tom, we were less than 1% apart. So it was very close. Amazing. That was amazing.
Thank you,
and congrats. That's right. Vegas killed me. Congratulations on the win. I hope you continue on your journey to better health.
I am working on it, although I went to Vegas after you, and that also did not do good. But I'm back to where I was.
Good.
All right.
Excellent.
So the first piece of board game news here we have is it's unfortunate news. So Tasty Minstrel Games is one of the few companies that is actually they put up shares of themselves. I still don't quite understand. It was like they used almost a crowdfunding type platform to sell parts of their things. I'm still not completely, but since they have people who own part of the company, they sent out a state of the company thing, and it's basically all negative. Their most recent Kickstarter that they ran, they're actually offering to refund people money on that. But in this email, they told everyone their book value is negative. They fired everyone at the company essentially except for the owner who owns it still. They got a PPP loan, but that wasn't enough. They're doing well selling dice. They're keeping the name around, but they don't expect to produce games in the next 2 to 3 years, and hopefully eventually get their money back to start up again.
So yeah, it's obviously very, very bad for them. Let me give you a little perspective first on what you mentioned there about how they're owned by other people. Very quickly, about 3 years ago, the securities laws were changed, whereby a private company could get some public ownership and not be like an exchange traded type of company like the ones that you know. So they went out, and it's like crowdfunding. They now have a bunch of people who own small segments of the company, and they put this out. They are, according to this, and this is my term, but this is true, they're in virtual bankruptcy. They're not bankrupt. They just have a negative book value, and they're going to be going into a mode where they produce no new big box games, concentrate on the small business of selling dice and their remaining inventory. Not a good thing right now for them. I feel bad. Nice people, but it's, this is what it is for them.
I think this happens more often than we know. It's just not often announced.
Well, when you hear a company that all of a sudden is not around anymore, or you don't hear from a company.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So that happens this time. They just, because they were owned, they had to tell these people what was going on.
Sure. They could have just faded, right, without mentioning it. But this is a very interesting thing with at least one other particularly negative thing going on right now in the industry, and people are calling it, I've heard this term, container apocalypse, whereby a container that you would ship out of China most of the time could have cost you as little as $3,000. That's very low. A few years ago. Right now, in the current environment, your shipments might cost as much as $20,000 or more for that one shipment. When you think of a 7 times increase in a single cost on a single container, that is really bad for many companies. Now, hopefully this is a temporary situation.
I can actually speak to this, Mr. Buonocore.
Go for it.
Because we're having stuff produced for our Kickstarter project that we ran earlier this year. We're having that shipped here to America right now, and it costs us $16,000 to do it.
That's amazing. But you're probably, I'm assuming you're shipping.
I think amazing is not the word I said out loud.
You might
when
be
I heard the number.
Yeah, that's bad, and I'm sorry that that's the case. Yeah. So it's going to be a temporary situation, but obviously people who have produced games, and they're going to need to still use containers or ship in a different way called, air shipment. And air shipment is just really crazy expensive. But if it's a small amount, maybe you go that route. But on the positive side, and this is a very important thing, I kind of shoved it in here to give a very positive look, though, on the industry. They just now was announced the 2020 hobby game sales were up by 21%. 2020, like the worst year, right, in forever, in our lifetimes, hobby game sales across the board, that's everything, role-playing, collectible, board games, card games, 21%. And the number now in North America alone is $2 billion, just eclipsed $2 billion. And in fact, in 2019, the growth had slowed a little bit, still was a double-digit number, but like 10%, I believe. And now it's accelerated in 2020. So long-term, the industry is in very good shape. And for well-run, smart companies, they're going to do well in the long term. There's just going to be some of these hiccups that do occur along the way.
All right, well, let's take a look now at some upcoming things. Let's switch to a slightly more cheerful note. In fact, let's go to the holidays, because you've always wanted to put up your Christmas lights and fry an egg at the same time with Guditama, the Tricky Egg card game holiday edition. I didn't realize this game was popular enough to need a holiday version, but goes to show what I know.
Yeah, this is a trick-taking game based on that cucumbers idea. It's one of those where you don't want to win the last trick. It was pretty by the numbers. I did try my hand at it. I thought it was there wasn't much of a spin on it above and beyond the traditional card game. So you can also color me surprised as to what this is all about. I just don't even get the connection. The game is, the theme, slapped on top of it is this, popular Asian cartoon, the little fried egg being cute and lazy. I don't get the connection.
Jingle bells, fried egg smell. Robin laid an egg.
That is a really odd thing to combine, but maybe there is an Asian connection as well to Christmas with this thing.
Well, it's a comic, so maybe there was a Christmas version or something. Well, speaking of,
hope the game is good.
Speaking of odd decisions, the next game, Caesar's Empire from Holy Grail Games, it's coming out in October. But this game is based on the main antagonist, Julius Caesar, of the Asterisk comics. So in Asterisk and Obelisk, they're always there. They're always fighting against Julius Caesar. What I think is weird is it's based in that universe. Those guys aren't on the cover at all. I don't think people, when they think Julius Caesar, they don't think those comics. He just exists in those comics to send Roman soldiers for them to punch up in the trees.
Yeah. I really hope that those characters are represented in the game. I worry, like you're saying, because this cover has that art style and it says Asterix in the bottom corner there, but I really hope that I can be Obelix in the game, or
Yeah, it's a little weird, right?
I hope the characters are in it. I really, really am a huge fan of Asterix and Obelix. I have been for many years. So it's nice to see a game using that theme, but I hope it's in it.
I literally have no connection to Asterix and Obelix. I don't know them. I have no idea. I happen to see this cover, and I'm like, that's kind of cool looking. That Caesar's this comic-y.
A cool cover.
Yeah, and it looks like a cool, like you're building Rome and stuff, and it just looks kind of interesting. But if you're telling me this has something to do with a comic book where these two other characters go and beat up Roman soldiers, it ain't showing it in this game.
I agree.
That's all they do is it's a silly comic. They just basically, they're like both enormously strong, and Roman soldiers show up and then they punch them literally into trees. And
that's funny.
It's this little village. They're a little village, the last village holding out against the Romans. And the reason they've been able to hold out is because they have a guy who makes this potion. And when they drink it, they become super powerful.
Right.
And just can do the whole whoop, 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 make the guys fly and stuff.
That's funny.
That's great stuff. I love it.
Alrighty, Atlas Game is coming out with Gloom Chronicles, and it's an expansion for Gloom, which adds campaign-style gameplay to the Gloom core game, something all of us have been asking for. Okay, I joked there, but it is only $8. It's 20 cards.
That's cool.
So if you love Gloom, and I think Gloom is okay, but I know a lot of people really like it, and then this is a way to add more stuff to the game.
So when I first saw this, I said to myself, this is like 20 years too late. But they've been adding into the Gloom universe fairly recently, so I think it's a great idea for a company to be picking their IPs that are evergreen on some level, and I think this one is Atlas Games' biggest seller or close to it, Gloom. So therefore, adding to this IP and continuing with it, there's a fan base for this, so it's going to sell.
Yeah, cool.
All right, our next news is kind of they're bringing back an expansion. This is just to let you know that Rio Grande is coming back out with Power Grid, the France-Italy expansion, which is, in my opinion, a very good expansion for the game. But this came out originally in 2005.
Surprised it wasn't reprinted before this?
Yeah, it's been out of print this long, or what?
I don't know. That's all the information I have.
Okay, moving on then, because it's not useful.
Mantic is launching a new game called Overdrive because we don't have enough sci-fi arena games at this point in time.
You said Magic is launching this?
Mantic Games. So you're picking a team, drafting a team, and then you fight around. There's like a tug-of-war scoring system. I think the board looks cool, and the art looks cool, and it's made by Mantic, so we'll see. Mantic makes games that look cool, but I haven't found them to be tremendously fun.
I like the fact that you've got multiple play modes, it looks like, right? A King of the Hill, a Pass the Bomb, all these different things that you can do in there. It looks like it, and it looks kind of cool, but I don't know how the game works. And didn't I see that it was very expensive here? It's like $120?
It's Mantic. They spend a lot of money on
$35.
Oh, but then there's
there's other stuff that they sell, I guess, apart.
That's the all-in bundle thing.
Yeah. If you want everything, that's $120. Yeah, $120. Yeah. Okay. The cover of this game really, to me, I feel like I'm looking at one of those Yu-Gi-Oh boxes at like Walmart.
But no, the core set, of the game is $75, which is pretty high to begin with, and then you can add on like the painted PVC things for $35 more and $18 for something else, and then $120 as an all-in. So, okay, I mean, I hope it's good. This one looks good, as you said, Tom, but let's see what it plays like.
I like the Sharky.
All right, on my list of games I'm buying, Mr. Buonocore, for Christmas, we have Munchkin Farkle.
Thank you. It's very nice of you.
If you want Farkle with a Munchkin theme, I don't know what else to tell you. This is
Farkle. I don't think I've played, but does Farkle even have enough in-game surfaces for them to display this artwork? Isn't Farkle just dice?
I thought Farkle's mostly just dice. Maybe they have some cards and with special powers. I don't know.
It just seems like you need to make sure you have a game where you can actually like show the artwork for whatever theme you're putting in there.
Oh,
does Farkle have enough of that?
This has got to be the greatest selling point I've ever seen in a game. The goal of this game is to cheat, curse, and occasionally flee from friends and family in an effort to win the most gold pieces. I am getting this game so I can cheat.
I already told you were getting this game.
Oh, and you and I are gonna play it.
All right, let's jump. So we talked at the beginning of the episode that Tasty Mitchell Games announced that they're out of business essentially for a while. Another company that has not announced this, but I'm wondering about, is North Star Games. And another nail in their coffin just happened here in a sense that Exploding Kittens, the company that owns Exploding Kittens, they bought Happy Salmon from North Star Games. And Happy Salmon was a game that did considerably well for North Star, a very small game, crazy game that you know it if you've seen it at convention because either you were having fun playing it or being annoyed at the people who were playing it at the table next to you.
Yes. There's a bigger story here, actually. About North Star Games. So they've either sold, as in the case of Happy Salmon, or lost some of their biggest IPs. Happy Salmon here, and they lost all the Wolfgang Warsch games.
Yeah, it's Quacks of
Quacks
Quackenberg
and Tavern of Tiefendahl. And then, which I don't think we're reporting on here. Oh no, no, you didn't mention it, but Exploding Kittens in their press release mentioned very strongly that Wolfgang Warsch is now designing externally for them, and Eric Lang was consulting on all their games.
Oh yeah, I knew that. I know that they made some new spin-off thing. Maybe we'll mention that in the news next week. There's some spin-off game thing for Exploding Kittens that these designers had worked on.
Yeah, but they made it very specific about them bringing, I would say, two of the biggest names currently in design to work on their games. So that's two separate things. That one is Exploding Kittens is strong, and they're going to be doing a lot of work with some designers and some interesting new games, I hope. But they got the right people. But the story about North Star, I agree, Tom, does not
North Star still has
sound good.
Evolution. You know, that's a pretty big game for them.
They've got Wits and Wagers, which
and
is
Wits and Wagers. Game. You're right.
That's their biggest selling game. Evolution, I'm sure, is okay, but I don't think it's a huge selling game. Wits and Wagers is big box stores and everything.
Right. All right. Well, here we have a seesaw pair of stories here. The first one is Fantasy Flight announces the newest game for Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth called Spreading War. And so it's basically a expansion that you can go through, adds more stuff, 15 scenarios, blah, blah, blah. 6 new heroes. Bjorn's in the game now, so that's cool. You could become Bjorn.
Nice.
And more miniatures. So more expansions for Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. However, and we're going to jump ahead 2 slides. Fantasy Flight said at the same time in an interview that they did with a website that there's no more Mansions of Madness 2nd edition on the way. So I'm saying so because the 2 games are fairly similar. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. There's so much Mansions of Madness content out there anyway at this point.
They're similar mechanically?
Oh yes, very much so.
Okay.
They both you go through missions and you use an app to go through them. I mean, Lord of the Rings is campaign style. Right. Mansion of Madness is a single scenario, but they have many, many similarities between them.
Okay. Yeah, I can't comment much about Mansion of Madness 2nd edition. I only played first, I believe. But I'm excited for more Journeys in Middle-earth. I think it's a great system. I've only played 2 scenarios there, but I want to get into it again and play it more, of course. I love the IP, of course.
To be fair, Mansions of Madness 2nd edition has had a lot of content. It's not like game feels
I'm not saying that. You know. I'm okay that they're ending it, right? Like I said, there's a lot of content. And Jim Cartwright from Fantasy Flight was also really coy in the interview and almost made me believe there's a 3rd edition on the horizon. Who knows? You know, that sort of thing. They essentially said, we're not done with it yet, but there's no more expansions coming. Well, what else are we supposed to think then?
Yeah, that certainly sounds like that. That has to be the reason that they would stop this, because Mansions of Madness is very popular, I think.
I think so.
All right. In the book of cool covers, going back a slide, we have Varuna. This is a game from the company Sorry We Are French, and it's in their same universe as Ganymede and Demeter. So I love this art style a lot. And I think that's a cool cover.
It's got the whole sort of, you can see the angles on it, like polygons, right? Is that the word? You can see polygons on it.
Yeah, it almost feels like you're looking at a folded paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a monster underwater that didn't finish loading.
Well, anyway, this is a flip and write game here. And yeah, there's some more information. You can go look at the website and everything to see more about it. But I think it looks interesting.
And I like the cover. It's definitely very evocative. I like my weird sci-fi.
The game is for 1 to 100 players. Did you notice that? This is a party game, obviously.
It's a roll and write or that kind, so you can just give a sheet to everybody. Most of those games don't really have a cap.
Cool. I like it.
Just don't play with 101 people, okay? That's madness.
All right, and then our final piece of news, a very popular game that Z and I both really like, Cryptid, has another version coming out, a 2-player game called Cryptid Urban Legends, an asymmetrical competitive game of deductive reasoning. This is coming from Osprey Games next April, and I am super pumped about this.
Yeah, me too, actually. It does seem to be really more of a spiritual success. Like they're in the family. It doesn't feel like a sequel as much as a different game in the same thematic trappings. Because it's, again, a 2-player only game, very different. It seems to be a cat and mouse style game, very different from from Cryptid, which is more of a sort of logical deduction and narrowing possibilities kind of game. This is its own thing, but it's from the same designer, so some of the same people worked on it, and I love the look of this cover. I'm excited because it just sounds really neat. I don't know if necessarily, I don't know if you necessarily would like one if you like the other, I think. You know what I mean? And you might like this one and not have liked the original one. So
I hope it's good, though. I guess that would be my thing.
Me too. It looks awesome.
I like hidden movement games, so I'll check it out.
All righty. Well, folks, that's the news. Let's keep moving.